Hi, it's Republican Party Chairman Jim Walsh here for our weekly WGOP Chairman's Update. I want to focus this week on two issues in particular. The ongoing story and controversies around election integrity and the judge races going on, the judge elections going on right now in Washington State, particularly the state Supreme Court judge races. But first, let's talk about elections in general. As you know, a little while ago, about a week and a half ago, the president gave a very high-profile speech where he talked about illegally registered voters in a number of states. Now, in that speech, the president did not reference Washington. In fact, he didn't reference any of the West Coast states. The focus of his remarks was on states in the Southeast and Midwest and East Coast. He outlined data that he had collected, or really his administration had collected, from a group of about 16 states in total, but with a real focus on about 4 or 5 of those states. And in the administration's research, it had determined that as many as 270,000 illegally registered voters were on the voter rolls in those states. Now, again, for emphasis, Washington was not one of the states included in the president's research and his speech. But the methods, the mechanics, and the risk factors to sort of loosely managed voter rolls, voter databases, registered voters, are similar to what we know is going on here in Washington State. The story is ongoing. There was an important piece of news in it, in that one of the states that the president did mention, New Jersey, the governor there has just recently, a few days ago really, announced that yes, New Jersey had illegally registered voters who are not legal voters to vote in New Jersey. She, the governor, blamed a software vendor, a software contractor that was supplying software, computer software to the state of New Jersey, had a glitch, she called it, in their programming that caused the illegal registering of these voters. Now, initially, the New Jersey governor said, well, it's about 6,600 individuals who are illegally registered. That number very quickly escalated. Other officials in New Jersey said, it's really more like 35,000. And importantly, the computer software vendor that the governor had said had the glitch that caused the problem put out a statement that there is no glitch in their system. That in their opinion, the state of New Jersey is misusing their software, and it has primarily to do with getting people driver's licenses, and systematically improperly registering people to vote. So now there's a little finger pointing going on between the state of New Jersey and this computer software vendor. But to bring us back to us here in Washington State, we have a similar problem in Washington. We do an automatic voter registration, also called motor voter program, quite similar in many ways to what New Jersey does. And we suspect, and we know, that there are some individuals illegally, improperly registered to vote in the state of Washington. Here in Washington, the question, like in New Jersey, is just how many. The Secretary of State, Mr. Steve Hobbs, who oversees elections here in Washington State, has acknowledged it's at least a few thousand. But as in New Jersey, other experts and investigators have said, no, the number's much larger than that. It may be 200,000 just here in Washington alone. In the wake of this issue about New Jersey and that state acknowledging its problem, there was an interesting media interview given by one of Washington's members of Congress, a lesser known one, a kind of backbencher, by the name of Emily Randall. She's a congresswoman from Washington State. And she was caught on camera on lesser alt media type TV show, interviewing people, including Congresswoman Randall, in D.C. about the matter of the illegally registered voters. And Congresswoman Randall obviously didn't get the talking points memo from the Democrat Party because she acknowledged that even here in Washington, there are illegally registered voters. And she said, but it's just a few and it doesn't really matter. Washington Democrats' official line has been there are no illegally registered voters in Washington, and our system is secure and safe. So the Congresswoman Randall, who, I want to be diplomatic, is no Margaret Thatcher, sort of stepped on a rake there, stepped in it, and has acknowledged something that we conservatives and common sense people know is happening here in Washington State. She sort of inadvertently stumbled into it, and you can kind of see in that video interview that she gave to that alternate media station, she kind of realizes halfway through the interview she screwed up, and she tries to alter, but she's just not very good on the fly, and she kind of dug her hole deeper. Anyway, we know this is a problem. What is the solution? Well, in the long term, we need to reform our election processes here in Washington across the board. In the near term, I stand by the position that the best thing we can do soonest is have a more robust and rigorous system for requiring voter ID when people register to vote in Washington. We need that. Now, there's a lawsuit that has been filed, as we've mentioned before, between the U.S. Department of Justice and the state of Washington, specifically this Steve Hobbs, the state secretary of state here in Washington. Ironically, that case, while it got off to a slow start, now is getting into the hearings phase, it's moving along. The first major hearings in this case, Department of Justice versus Hobbs, is on primary election day. Their hearings are going to be on August 4th, so about 10 days from now, and it's sort of ironic that these hearings on the weak state of election security in Washington State is going to happen, at least they're going to start, on primary election day, on August 4th. So if you believe in irony or if you believe in synchronicity, there's some justice in this case getting its court hearing on primary election day. What the U.S. Department of Justice is demanding in this lawsuit is that Mr. Hobbs hand over Washington's voter data so that the Department of Justice can search it for illegally registered voters. And Mr. Hobbs has been refusing and not cooperating and delaying as much as he can, and it is widely speculated that he's doing this because he knows there are problems in the database of registered voters here in Washington State. And the problems are more acute because, of course, we are an all mail-in voting state. So we don't have the in-person polling place voting that naturally updates voter data, because when you vote in person, you have to go into a polling place, you have to often present ID, and the voter databases are organically and naturally updating. So we don't have that here in Washington, and we need more of that. Now, to bring this whole election point, the broader election issue, to the narrower point in the news now, we are in the primary season. Primary ballots are out. You should have received yours already. If you haven't, contact your county elections office. That's usually under the county auditor's department. And tell them you haven't gotten your ballot yet, because most people should have received their primary election ballots by now. They're due Tuesday, August 4th, but try to get them in a couple days earlier if you can. There are a lot of things on this primary ballot, but statewide, the biggest issue are the several state Supreme Court races that are happening this year. Normally, in an election year, you get a handful of state Supreme Court positions. Of course, we elect our judges here in Washington State, as I mentioned before. But this year, because of a few earlier than expected retirements, there are going to be 5 positions on the state Supreme Court up for election this year, 2026. Now, only 4 of them are on your primary ballot because one of them only drew 2 candidates, and in that case, it goes directly to the November general election ballot. But there'll be 4 of those judge races, those state Supreme Court judge races, on your ballot. We've made our recommendations in all 4 of them. But I want to say this. It is important that you vote, and it is doubly important this year that you vote in those judge races. Don't leave the judge races blank. Last time there was an open judge seat, Dave Larson, the municipal court judge out of Federal Way, ran for the state Supreme Court. He's a judge that we here at the WGOP like. He's a constitutionalist driven by the text of the Constitution. We like that in judges. He was not elected, Larson, in that previous race, but only by a margin of about 21,000 votes. That's 0.5% or less. And one of the things about these judge races in our state is people leave them blank. They're not comfortable voting for judge candidates. They feel they don't know enough about the judges to make an informed decision. So they leave those races blank. Even when they vote the rest of the ballot, we can't do that this time. In the primary ballot, you will see 4 state Supreme Court races with multiple candidates. In position 1, we recommend either Laura Kohlberg or Scott Edwards. I've talked about these races in detail before. In position 3, we like the candidate David Stevens, Stevens with a V. In position 5, it's that Dave Larson who came so close in the last state Supreme Court race. He's on the ballot again this year. Vote for Dave Larson. And in the 4th, that's on the primary ballot, that's position 7 on the state Supreme Court, we like Todd Bloom. So those are the names to look for. Those are the boxes to check if you're a good Republican. We need to vote in these judge races. We need to change the shape of the state Supreme Court, which will be ruling on things like the proposed state income tax, like law and order issues and law enforcement, like very likely protecting girls' sports and matters like that. We need common sense, constitutional-minded judges on the state Supreme Court. So from the large to the narrow, there's a lot going on, but vote, vote, vote. Don't let your concerns prevent you from voting. We need to fix our election system to be sure that the way we get there is we play the cards in front of us. And that's your primary ballot. That's it for this week. Vote, vote, vote. Fight, fight, fight. Be well and stay strong.